comes back every once in a while, and
Once in a while.
yeah,
Again, and
I didn't know that was your aunt, but I had heard about her.
maybe that's where all
The neighbors filled you in when you got there?
Yep. This is this person, this is this person, this is this person.
They don't clear their ditch, their culvert overflows, don't cross the street, they drive too fast.
And you'll always be living in the previous owner's house.
I feel that way. Yeah, I do.
Many years down the road, it'll be your house.
So they go over all.
Then once I sell it, right?
Yeah, that'll be the Mills house.
Nope,
It'll always be the originals, huh?
yep.
I mean, we were gonna go to St. Luke's, and then the referral nurse said everybody goes to St. Luke's. So we thought, that's so easy to park. So we looked up the docks, and they were all foreign trees.
You know me.
Where, their education.
You
Whether
must
it was
come and get
male
recognition.
Have to try to figure out what position am I in to evaluate it.
Well, no, but I'm just saying, you're not. But she said, why? She said, we always refer that to Scentia. And we were just.
You can
looking
stand
at
if you want.
convenience.
Yeah.
She was, well, they're all good. And then we called.
Do you have a red dot?
And said, we decided on that. But how would I know if the University of Singapore or wherever?
All right. Looks like it's time. So welcome to the Public Health and Human Service Board meeting. It is Tuesday, March 19th, and we will call the meeting to order. And we have some important things to do this morning, so just a little housekeeping to please turn your cell phones off if they're on for any reason so they don't start ringing. And we will go into our proclamations, and Allison is going to read them because I mess them up sometimes.
So I'm happy to kick off our meeting this month in recognizing Social Work Appreciation Month in 2019 in Cook County. Whereas the social work profession is dedicated to enhancing the well-being and helping meet the basic needs of all people, especially those who are vulnerable, oppressed, and living in poverty. Whereas social workers elevate and empower people, giving them the ability to solve problems, cope with personal roadblocks, and get the resources they need to succeed. Whereas the social work profession is deeply weaved within our society, with social workers active in government, schools, universities, social service agencies, communities, corporations, the military, and in healthcare and mental health care settings. Whereas social workers stand ready to help our society overcome current pressing issues, including equal rights for all, the need for improved availability of healthcare and mental health services. Now, therefore, in recognition of the numerous contributions made by social workers, I, on behalf of Heidi Dukirk, Public Health and Human Services Board Chair, proclaim the month of April 2019 as Social Work Month in Cook County and call upon all citizens to join Cook County Public Health and Human Services in celebration and support of the social work profession. So thank you all.
Could we have you stand up and introduce yourselves?
I'm Reed Watson, and I'm a child protection social worker.
Thank you.
I'm Heidi Higgins, and I do intake and tobacco child protection with the Children and Families.
Thank you for your service.
I'm Diana White, I'm adult social services social worker. I work with the Care Center as well as in the community that are over 65 or have disabilities in the community.
Thank you.
I'm Ray, and I'm an adult services social worker.
Thank you so much. Grace isn't going to tell us who she is, but we know who Grace is, and we appreciate her work too. Thank you all for your work.
Thank you. And we actually have two proclamations to share this month, the second being recognizing April as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Cook County. Even though it is March, we are giving the proclamation now, sharing a presentation from our staff related to child abuse prevention so that we have the whole month of April to really celebrate and recognize the work that's going on in the community to help protect children. So in recognition of April as Child Abuse Prevention Month, whereas in federal fiscal year 2017, 4.1 million referrals were made to Child Protective Services involving approximately 7.5 million children. And whereas child abuse and neglect is a serious problem affecting every segment of our community, Finding solutions requires input and action from everyone in our community. Whereas children are our most valuable resources and will shape the future of the state of Minnesota. And whereas child abuse can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects that can have lifelong consequences for victims of abuse. And whereas protective factors are conditions that reduce or eliminate risk and promote the social, emotional, and developmental well-being of children. Whereas effective child abuse prevention activities succeed because of the meaningful connections and partnerships created between child welfare, education, health, community and faith-based organizations, businesses, and law enforcement agencies. And whereas communities must make every effort to promote programs and activities that benefit their children and families. Whereas we acknowledge that we must work together as a community to increase awareness about child abuse and contribute to promote the social and emotional well-being of children and families in a safe, stable, nurturing environment. Whereas prevention remains the best defense for our children and families. Now, therefore, I, on behalf of Heidi Dukirk, Public Health and Human Services Board Chair, do hereby proclaim April 2019 as Child Abuse Prevention and Neglect Month, Prevention Month in Cook County, Minnesota, and urge all citizens to recognize this month by dedicating ourselves to the task of improving the quality of life for all children and families.
Thank you. All right, approval of the consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull anything? Would anyone like to make a motion?
Well,
You want to pull something?
yeah, just the minutes.
Okay.
Some small corrections.
Okay. Let's just dig into those.
Okay. Number 7, committee reports. Letter A, the AOA agency is myself as the primary, not Myron as listed. And then I think Jan's name is on here somewhere. Down on H, the North Shore Collaborative, is Jan's name on there. I think that was all. Small corrections.
Okay. Did you get those?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. All right, so then with those changes, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Now we move on to Heidi and Reed.
So I'm Reed Watson. I'm a child protection social worker and a parent support outreach worker too, and I'll explain more about that later. And this is going into my second year doing this here. So we just got a presentation here for you that kind of outlines some of the things we can do to help prevent, like things as a community, and also maybe clarify some of the things that our team does to help find preventative measures to help prevent child abuse. First, what is child abuse and neglect? Here's a list of some of the most prominent things that came to that. I don't think I have to read all of them out loud, but physical abuse, sexual abuse, mental injury, lack of supervision, education, domestic abuse situations. These are some of the biggest things we deal with, and substance use. Does anybody have any questions about that list? Feel free to interrupt me at any time if you have any questions. And this is just kind of a further list of some of the prominent precipitating factors that lead to some of those abuses. Chemical dependency, mental health struggles, domestic violence, financial stressors, lack of or limited resources and support systems, homelessness, parenting issues, and past traumas, almost always a very big feature that we're dealing with in parents and in children that we work with. Trauma is something that is almost always there with families we work with on the child protection side. But protective factors is what we try to focus on in our work. Definitely our role is not to take kids away from the home or shame parents or make anybody feel bad. Our job is to try to learn what's going well with families and how to increase things that are going well and to increase supports for parents and for kids. And to help parents come up with plans for how that works for them, because every family is different. Every family has different needs. Every family has a different idea of what normal looks like. And our job is to really help figure out what that is with the parent and work in tandem. And that's like the best case scenario is that we just help parents develop a safe plan that works for them. So some of those protective factors are nurturing and attachment. We often talk with parents about the importance of nurturing and attachment with kids. A lot of parents who struggle don't always know the role that attachment, like between their young one and themselves as the parent, plays in like having a really good chance of success and having ways to decrease stressors and things. They don't know how big of a deal that is and how much easier that can make things. To have some basic skills about like nurturing and attachment. Because often parents we work with haven't necessarily had exposure to that. They either had parents that didn't have those features or just hadn't have an idea about it. So education is a big part we play too. Knowledge of parenting and of child and youth development, knowing what like resources are out there, knowing what like what kind of like parent education possibilities are. We often connect people with other people who can help with that, or services, or just like what we know about it from art. So it's often we're working one-on-one with parents to help with that kind of thing. Parental resilience, social connections, concrete supports for parents, and social and emotional competence of children. So everyone wants to be a good parent. That's what we always like to say. And mostly what we're dealing with is people don't always have all the resources to know what it is to be a good parent. Like how do we raise that bar? Even if it's just a little bit, that can make it life-changing differences for some families.
And there are some ways that we help parents with these protective factors too, like with the nurturing and attachment piece. We, at all costs, would rather not remove kids from their home. 100% of children that are removed from their home will have some sort of disrupted attachment. So we just know how important that is and how we want to help support families to not make it harder for them to recover and be the parents that they want to be. So I think we do a really good job of trying to elevate these protective factors in parents instead of mitigate them, so, which can be hard.
And that's definitely the theme of the state, and what we know about social work now is that all the studies show that keeping kids in the home is the best way to reduce trauma. So finding whatever we can do to figure out what safety measures need to be in place to keep the kids at home so that they're going to be safe that night and for the nights to come, that's going to give the kids the best chance, even if it's like not the best home scenario, but if it's safe, staying with the parents is, it totally just puts off having to have that trauma being removed from the home, which is really huge. And there's deep studies in that now, so that's the trend, is to keep the kids in the home.
Build safety around.
Services offered in the community. So here's a list of a lot of the different things, programs that we work with or offer. Child welfare or parent support outreach programs. Those are voluntary programs that we offer, that Public Health and Human Services offers. I mentioned that I often work, and Heidi does too, with parent support outreach program, which is a pretty new program in Minnesota. It's not that old. It's been giving more and more funding because it's a way to help parents who have had struggles either with chemical dependency or past domestic violence, are just trying to like get a leg up to get out of like a negative loop and need a little extra help either with like a rent down payment, like a security deposit, or like a repair to their car, something like really practical, because often some of the families we work with, it's not like they have this whole world of things going on, but just being stuck in this kind of like negative financial loop, which adds all these stressors. So parent support outreach is really like a way to like kind of just help in little ways to kind of get the head a little further above water, and then to be a support too. So it's like meeting with the families regularly and just offering consultation things like that. And child welfare is similar to that too. It's a little bit more, do we use that one as much?
I don't think, I think if, the one thing about parent support outreach is that children need to be under 10 and under. So we would do more of a child welfare if they were older kiddos, but pretty much the same service, minus the funding aspect that comes along with PSAP.
Yeah. Then we also have Children's Mental Health Services, and Jade Voltman is our Children's Mental Health Worker. And that is, you know, it's for kids who have, if they have diagnosed, or they're undiagnosed and they have like mental challenges or extra needs, Jade can help get the assessments done that might need to happen. She can help coordinate those services, meeting with the kid, see if there's any funding available that could help, put the kid on a better path, and then also can consult with parents too. So when Jade works with a child through Children's Mental Health, she often works with the whole family and are looking at kind of like holistic factors that will contribute to the kid, to their successes. So that's a really wonderful program we offer too. And sometimes sometimes we all work together, because oftentimes, Children's Mental Health, sometimes there's extra stressors in the family, so they might also be doing like parent support outreach if they have younger kids in the house, and we can kind of balance a lot of those different services. Let's see, anything else on this list that you really want to point out?
I think a lot, the Universal Home Visiting Program is really great. That's also pretty new, to have that be available for every family. As we all know, having a new baby in the house can be one of the biggest stressors in a family's life. So it's really nice to have people be able to do that program. And now that's offered through Sawtooth Mountain Clinic instead of new services. So, and then with that is a follow-along program that's also done through the clinic. A lot of times, so when I'm on intake, I do intake for the agency, and I give out these resources a lot. A lot of people have questions about how do I get signed up for WIC, or how do I get financial assistance because I lost my job, or I left my relationship, and there are a lot of resources that we can connect people to.
Thank you. This might be a little bit out of the realm, but what kind of services are offered or assessment for postpartum depression?
That's a good question. That could depend. We do have adult mental health services too,
sure,
and that could fall under that.
Okay.
If they have young kids too, parent support outreach can help with that, and then that would be like, there'd be another support for the parent, and that we could meet with them or also help. Because parent support outreach can work like that, like children's mental health or other things, like where we're going to work to find like referrals, to figure out, like, kind of talking with the parent, find out what their needs are, find out like what kinds of things they would like to receive, and then help figure out how we can get them connected with that. And it can help pay for it too if they're struggling with that. So,
thank you.
Also, those screening questions for postpartum depression would come through if a family elected to family home visiting services. So when that was administered through Cook County PHHS, and as we were going through the transition process, I remember that being a part, and of myself being a parent and having a home visitor in my home after my son was born, that's a really important piece of checking in about how you're doing in those really early weeks after giving birth.
Help Me Grow is another, I can't see my little mouse up there, but the Help Me Grow is another program that's really a wonderful program, and that's through the school, so we don't do that, but we make those referrals almost always when there's a young kid with the family that we're meeting, and that's a process that the school has staff who does that, and it's they assess, see how the kid's doing, watch their developmental stages, and then if they're not meeting all their developmental goals, like they'll work with them and do a lot of wonderful things and get to help get kids on track. And it's a wonderful program.
And we're actually mandated to make those referrals for a family we're working with protection if they're 3 or under, because we know that birth to 3 is such a crucial time for child development that if there's struggles around in the family that warrant child protection response, that across the state, everyone's required to meet that referral.
Yes, question, thank you. Is that sort of getting at this ACE, aversive childhood experiences kind of thing? Would those kinds of students be sort of the ones that would get through this Help Me Grow process, or where would that fall, or hasn't it yet?
It would vary, like kid to kid, you know, kids who are high on the ACEs, I don't know if everyone knows that, but that's the average childhood experiences, and that's kind of a way of measuring, or just recognizing kids who have trauma can have, you know, that could have, trauma in early childhood can lead to developmental delays, but there's a lot of ways that can manifest, but very likely kids who have an ACEs score, who've had adverse childhood experiences are probably going to really benefit from Help Me Grow. And a lot of the kids we work with have benefited from that. And it really, in early intervention when kids are really young is just one of the best times to intervene. The younger they are, and being able to work through some of those traumatic things like those connection or attachment issues that can come up with early childhood trauma, it really sets the kids up for success later in life.
Can I comment on that as well?
Sure.
That Help Me Grow does look at developmental aspects such as physical body, language, all those things can be impaired if you have a child lives with trauma. But one of the great things that the school can do through this assessment is make a referral for parenting education. And right now, the parenting education that's available is the Early Childhood Family Education Program, which is using a new curriculum called Circles of Security. And so it's focused on developing attachments. And it's universal. It's all families are getting that curriculum right now. It's not just for certain families. And so, but the school can do in-home parenting education using the Circles of Security curriculum. So the Help Me Grow is a great tool that I really didn't understand that completely until the last couple of years, and it's just a real value to our families with young kids. So it's a really great asset to our community.
Does that funding come through the Department of Education or through Health and Human Services?
I think the Department of Education
Okay.
is where it comes from.
Okay.
Yeah. So then I think that goes off to early childhood special education and
Right.
ECFE. I think that's the pathway.
Good.
But we're really strengthening the collaboration between the school, the clinic, and our agency. That's different in the last couple of years.
Hallelujah.
Any other questions for this list here? How can I help? And this is more like a list of not just for us social workers, but for anyone in the community. It's really a list for everybody, parents too. So these are all things that can be done to kind of make things easier for parents and for families. And sometimes it's just something really small. You know, you got nurturing caregiver in a child's life. Offer to help parents. Even something like if you see a family at the grocery store and the kid's just having a meltdown, and you can see that mom's stressed or dad's stressed, letting them go first. Let them cut in line so they can kind of get out of situations. And you know, it's the little things like that take out tiny stressors can be really big for people, or feel like they're seen. You know, oftentimes parents who are struggling or under a lot of stress, they don't feel like they're seen, or they feel like they're a burden to people, and that's a stressor too. So it's like a stressor on top of a stressor. You know, things like offering babysitting or running errands, making meals, or reaching out and just like saying like, how are you doing? And like showing some kind of, you know, just showing any small measure of solidarity, or saying like, I see you, and like, you know, I hear you, and that's you know, recognizing the struggle and offering support when it's appropriate. Let's see what else is good to point out here. Anything you want to add, Heidi?
I like as a parent, so sometimes parents need help figuring out what they can do to relieve some of that stress too. So practicing self-care, asking for help. I know that's something I struggle with. Monitoring your social media intake and your kids. I kind of wish now I had more of an exhaustive list of that, of what you can do as a parent, but that's something that if we're going to go back to our services that we offer, that we could help parents dive into that more too. If they're struggling to figure out what they can do for themselves.
Yeah, like if you do a yoga class or spin, something you do in the community, and like you're something like, hey, like there's like you can have your kid watch while you do this, and like we'd love to have you, like that, like things like that, like where they might not even occur to a parent that they could have like somebody watch their kid while they get out and do something social, or just have something different like that, or it's really big. People forget to get exercise and things. Yeah.
Thank you. I've noticed over the last few years that grandparents are becoming some caretakers. Have you noticed that, a trend when you're out there?
Some of that, yeah, that grandparents are oftentimes a huge resource when we're working with families. And part of that too is the change in social work, this idea of like not wanting to remove kids from the home. And if we do have to do that, keeping them with family, keeping them with people they know, people they're used to being with. And almost invariably, grandparents are kind of like, they've been through a lot, and they're usually in a more stable setting, and so they make really good, like if the parent has to go to treatment, and a grandparent can watch the kids while they're doing that for a few months or weeks, it's a really easy way to not disrupt too much. So yeah, we've had some wonderful support from grandparents. Yeah.
And especially American Indian families, that's also required of us to keep them with their, preferably on the reservation, but for sure with a family member or with a member of the tribe. But we do try to apply that to everybody.
Yeah, and even as a parent, for self-care, just a night off or whatever like that, I think it's really important. Grandparents can be a huge help, and so having as much family in the immediate area is real advantageous for our community, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. That's something we try to offer for foster parents too, is respite care. So the foster parents, or even if if the foster parent is the grandparent, so that they can have a night. Because often you're dealing with kids who are, dealing with a lot of stress too, and they're displaced, and that's a lot of energy. So I think for anybody, yeah, that like having that just even if it's a couple hours once a week, that could be a game changer for sure.
Put in a plug for Kids Plus at the Y that people can drop the children off and go work out. Go ahead.
We work with the Y a lot to help with memberships and things like that for families, and that's always really great. Families are really appreciative for that, and they're a really good resource.
The asking for help, like Heidi said, I've got a friend who she's really good about actually getting on social media and saying, I just need a shower. And she has had people respond and say, I can come to your house for 30 minutes so you can do that. And I'm just amazed by that because people just don't think to ask that, and that's all she wants. And she, and she'll say, just don't look at the laundry on the floor. Just let me have a shower. And it's great. And she'll get 2 or 3 people. I'll do that for you.
Yeah, not being judged is also important, and this is in the social work realm. Sometimes we get concerns like your house is really messy, or something like that, and we are always quick to be like, cleaner than my house.
Yeah.
2 kids.
There's level of messy.
Yes, very subjective. So we're very in tune to what's a reasonable expectation for parents and what isn't.
A very wise doctor told me that dust builds your immune system.
Studies also show that a child who has if there's a lot of struggles in the home, maybe the home's safe enough, but there's still a lot of stressors in the house. A child who's able to make one positive connection, whether it's with their parents or an uncle or a teacher, but somebody who is taking the time to see them and model being a responsible adult, and they're able to have that one safe connection, that can be enough to really change a kid's life too. So that's something we try to keep in mind when we're working with families who have a lot of struggles, even if it's there's few enough struggles to keep everybody together, but the kids still need something a little extra, and that's often something we're looking for and connecting to, because it might not just be like a therapist, but just somebody who they can relate to, whether it's a family member or close family friend.
I'd just like to make one comment on behalf of our whole thing is that we do have a team model, and that's how we make sure that we attend to all those things that are supportive for the family. When you do work with people in isolation, it's easy to make mistakes and errors, so it's so important that we have a team, and I'm so grateful for the team that we have and for the additional staffing. It has really strengthened our approach and really helped to stabilize families, because we have enough time to work with families now who have really complex situations that require somebody to be with them for a long period of time so they can make that leap over into solid ground. When you leave people kind of hanging in the middle because you're understaffed, that's not a good place to be. It's easy to go back to what's familiar and perhaps unsafe. So I just am grateful for our team concept, and for the support that we receive. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just had one quick question. I think one of the hardest things is to remove a child from the home for the social worker to do. And I just wondered what's in place for self-care or group care in that kind of a scenario. What do we have in place?
Self-care for
The staff?
The social worker, the staff.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. I think we each have our own things personally, but we're also really, I think everyone would agree with me, but I don't think we could have a better team than we have. We're really supportive of each other, and we create a lot of space and support as a team, and that's just a tremendous gift. I've never worked with a finer group of people, and that makes a big difference when you're doing stressful work. It's true. Yeah, we know how to have fun, we know how to like give each other space when someone's just like clearly just needs to be left alone. So it's good. We're good at reading each other.
Yeah, and we're a good team where we can say whatever we're feeling and not feel judged or feel like there's space for that. There's space to talk about your feelings in an appropriate way, and yeah, we do know how to have fun. It's actually pretty amazing. Because we do hard work, but we can, we find time to laugh.
And I'm hearing the support piece, which is important, besides having fun to offset, yeah.
I know it's stressful to pull kids out of the family, but I would beg you to do it when you need to.
I was just going to add that in the past, we have brought in an outside facilitator to meet with staff as well to provide some peer support type services and just kind of unpacking and talking through some of the stressors without sharing any client-specific information.
Yeah, that's one of the hardest things, is you can't really go home and talk to anybody about what you experience every day. So, yeah, that was helpful.
And that was supported with grant funds from the North Shore Healthcare Foundation, that we were able to bring someone in to do that work with our staff.
And that's still available to your staff?
It's not with the same regularity. We haven't been bringing someone in as frequently, but I believe that it's still an option.
We're big promoters and utilizers of the EAP, and so thankful that's there. That's a really great asset of the counties. Again, if we have that place to release and process, the more likely to hang in there with our jobs, and the longer people stay in a position, the better you get. The more continuity there is in services, the better it is for our families and our organizations.
Any questions?
There's our last slide, other than these references and links here, we got to make sure.
This 30 ways, 30 days is from the column that was submitted. And I took a peek, and it's good. It talks about 30 different ways. So it goes into more detail than we put there. And it's from an organization called PreventChildAbuse.org, I believe. And it was a good tool to have some more ideas of how to help.
Thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you.
I'm glad
Thank
it's
you.
a little easier up there because it was really hard for a long time. So we got the people in place. Yeah. Good staff is a good thing, and the resources, and, you know, you guys need a break too. Like you said, you can't take it home. You've got to absorb it all, so. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna figure out a way to make that say Lori.
Thank you.
All right, director report.
Okay, start with a few staffing updates. We are really excited to be welcoming back Olivia Bonander to the Public Health and Human Services team. Olivia worked with us several years ago as a social worker. Olivia McGee at that time, she's since gotten married. So Olivia is coming back to fill the vacancy that was created when Jean Munson left her position and moved over to probation. So Olivia will be an adult services social worker. We also met with interested mental health provider for the contracted community support position. So things are moving forward, just working out details with the contract agreement and such, and we'll hope to be bringing that forward next month to this board. A few updates agency-wide. We received notification just this morning. 2 letters from the state, one in regards to the countywide single audit reports for year end December 31st, 2017. Findings were that DHS reviewed the audit report of Cook County for the year end 2017. The review found that there are no unresolved human services or cross-cutting audit findings requiring a corrective action at this time. Therefore, no corrective action plan will be requested. We also received notification that for calendar year 2018 financial reporting, this letter is from the Commissioner of the Department of Human Services, Tony Laurie, saying, "It is my pleasure to commend your staff for perfect performance in meeting the Department of Human Services financial reporting requirements for calendar year 2018. All key quarterly fiscal reports for programs your county participates in were submitted to our financial Operations Division on or before the report deadlines and in perfect order. This effort required submission of 32 major reports covering the 4 calendar quarters of 2018, and it goes on to list the reports. So just wanted to share that with you and commend the work of our fiscal team, as well as the direct services staff and social workers who are working closely with them to ensure all of the reporting is entered timely and that those reports are submitted to the state for all of our required reporting and audits. We also received good news from the department in that our department is eligible for a certificate for the second quarter of 2018. And it was 2 quarters, and I'm sorry I didn't note that here, and I don't have the certificate yet from the state, but I'll share those next month. But essentially, this is in recognition of our application timeliness processing for the SNAP program, the Supplemental Nutrition Program, or food stamps, formerly known as. So what this means is that all of our applications for both regular 30-day processing and 5-day expedited processing, so someone needs immediate help because their resources are so low, that we achieved the timeliness processing rate of 96% or higher for both of those criteria for 2 quarters in a row.
Awesome.
Which I think is the first time that's happened in my recent memory. So major kudos to our income maintenance team as well for keeping that standard high. Our performance improvement plan that we had was closed because we were meeting those standards of timeliness before the 2-year period. But just the fact that we're keeping it up above that standard really goes to show the great work of our staff in their teamwork and organization and ensuring, most importantly, that people are receiving their benefits in the most timely manner.
Awesome.
On that note, we are in the early stages of our SNAP management evaluation review. This is every 2-year process where our department is audited by the state to ensure that we are in compliance with state and federal guidelines for the SNAP program. Some of the areas that they review are payment accuracy, so are people receiving the correct benefits based on their income, their assets, and their expenses? And when we have closed a case or terminated or decreased benefits, was that done according to policy and the circumstances within that household unit? Also reviewed are our customer service practices, our access to the program. Are we informing people of all of the various ways of how to apply, that a telephone interview is an option, that you can apply online, all of those types of things, and also looking at our compliance with civil rights as well as required with the federal SNAP program. Under items for board action, we have a revised county burial policy. This hadn't been reviewed in many, many years, and essentially the changes, which we did bring before the Public Health and Human Services Advisory Committee to review and requested feedback on our changes. Essentially what we have tried to do with these revisions is to make the process more user-friendly, both for our staff and for anyone who would be applying for assistance from the county for the burial of an individual who does not have income or assets to pay for that service. We have also adjusted the amounts of the burial service. Because that hadn't been updated in so long, our rates were no longer appropriate with the mortuaries, funeral homes that are providing that service. So Allison Plummer, our financial assistant supervisor, worked both with other counties in the region to look at their policies and their rates to ensure that we are comparable, and also working with the service providers who would be performing that service to ensure that our rate is appropriate. We looked back at the history to see that historically we've budgeted about $5,000 a year for county burial. This isn't something where we receive a funding allocation from the state or federal government. This is solely human services or levy dollars. In 2018, there were 4 applications. Just 2 were funded and approved. And the costs for the burials were, one was about $1,100 and the other was $2,000. So we have historically been right around that $5,000 amount. This adjustment in the prices won't have a significant budget impact. And again, it's not something that we can really project. So we're looking at 5-year averages, looking at what we can estimate, but again, we can't predict when someone will pass and if that person doesn't have the resources to pay for a burial service. Also under items for board action are renewals of our various addendums with the Sawtooth Mountain Clinic for providing contracted public health services. Each of those contract addendums are a renewal, with the exception of the new addendum for family home visiting services. We've been working on this transition for many months with the clinic now, and are really excited to have that finalized here, presenting a contract to you today. They have hired a nurse that is conducting family home visits. They have also we were just recently notified last month that through our community health board that Cook County, in partnership with Sawtooth Mountain Clinic, has received a grant, an expansion grant for the Healthy Families America program, which will allow the clinic to introduce a new evidence-based curriculum to use with families who are at greatest risk in Cook County. So that will be just, again, another level of the service that they are providing after that program was transitioned from PHHS to the clinic. A few other public health related updates. We reconvened the stakeholder group in February for the community health assessment. That process has been underway for the last about 1.5 years, And this was our first meeting with Grace Grenager, our new public health coordinator, to provide both a look back at where we've been, look at the data sets that we've reviewed and the data that we've collected locally, both community-wide and within our stakeholder group. We had a few new folks at the table, which is always exciting, and really looking forward to reconvening again later this month and really drilling down on those actionable goals for how do we use all this information and how does it inform our work into the next 5 years, both as a department and community-wide. We also held an organizational meeting for the soon-to-be formed local advisory committee for adult and children's mental health. We met with a small group of members of our Public Health and Human Services Advisory Committee to review our draft bylaws and application forms, talk about the structure of that committee, how it's going to report up to the Public Health and Human Services Board. And we are in the process of scheduling an open house to invite members of the public who are interested in participating in this committee to just come up and have an informal conversation with some of our advisory committee members and staff who will be involved in that committee to learn more about what's the time commitment, what is the value of participating, and is it going to be workable for people's schedules. Because again, the real value of this committee is the mandated representation of consumers and family members of people who have a lived mental health experience, whose lives have been touched by mental illness. So by having over 50% composition of community members with that experience on this committee will really help inform our decisions as an agency and the information that we bring for board consideration as we look at how we are going to build up mental health services in Cook County. Grace Grenager is attending the local Public Health Association Day at the Capitol later this week, so I'm excited for her to have that experience. As usual, I try and bring some relevant legislative updates. It would be difficult with the time we have in this meeting to give a comprehensive overview of all the different things that are going on related to public health and human services in the legislature. But one of the areas related to our work is on Tuesday. The House Health and Human Services Finance Committee heard a bill requesting an additional $16 million above the base grant for the local public health the local public health grant. And this is a really important grant for counties, especially small counties, because it's more flexible in terms of how those dollars can be used and really targeted at what we are doing in the community to increase prevention resources. So again, this is HF 1981, and it increases $16 million above the base, $21.6 million per year for local public health funding statewide. Also wanted to share with you that our department, mostly Sarah, has spearheaded an effort to develop a resource guide for public health and human services to share with clients that we're working with, to have available to members of the community, to list the various resources that we share in our presentations each month to the board, really across the spectrum of prenatal to end of life in the other services beyond our department that we are working to connect people with. So we will be hopefully publishing this resource guide online very soon, and this will really be a living document that can be updated frequently as names and information change. We are also sharing information throughout the month and next on the diverse values that our social work staff, both internal to the department and community-wide, to bring through our Facebook page, through our article to the Cook County News Herald, and in our presentation to you this morning. And for the month of April, we'll really be focusing on child abuse prevention resources as well. And I just want to thank you for the ability to recognize the staff by sharing these proclamations today. This is one of the things that really fills my bucket when I get to elevate the work that our staff are doing every day. So thank you.
Thank you.
So we have 2 items for board action. The first one is the approval of the addendums to the master agreement with Sawtooth Mountain Clinic. Can I get a motion for that?
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The next item is the burial policy revisions. Can I get a motion for those?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we will move into committee reports. Arrowhead Economic Opportunity.
Dave Mills.
That'll get updated.
Thank you, Dave.
I don't have an update from that they didn't meet this past month.
Arrowhead Health Alliance Joint Powers, Dave.
I do have an update there. I attended my first meeting with the AHA and went to Duluth for it, and I wanted to see the facility. It's a newish facility, and mainly went over budget stuff at the meeting, but then just getting a tour of the facility was nice to see what it's all about. And for those of you that don't know, it's Birch Tree Center is a mental health crisis center, there were some questions at the meeting about their occupancy, because I think for the last 2 months it was at about 43%, which seemed really low because there is a mental health crisis happening in our region and state and country. And so we talked a little bit about the numbers of people that came to the center but did not stay. And there's a number of reasons for that. The largest number was in the other category, and so that isn't extremely helpful to tell us why people are not staying. So we're hoping to dive into that a little bit more and then try to remove the barriers so that people can stay if they need the help. So, I mean, another large factor is they changed their mind. They didn't want to stay there, so that's certainly within their rights too. But it'd be good to dive into that other category. And I don't know if you have anything else, Allison. So I'll probably teleconference next time. It seemed like that worked pretty well on your end, although it was the single computer versus the owl. So I don't know, right? You were in your office.
I was at my desk.
Yeah. So I'll try to telecommute this. I mean, I guess that was another large part of the discussion too, was the teleconference, telehealth, doing these kinds of assessments over distance and having a statewide network for that. And there's a pretty big push to get more of that and to have the state support it and run and operate it, which there's a little bit of fear there too because of a lot of the state technical issues that have been happening with, I guess, different departments. But yeah.
Thanks, Steve. Arrowhead Regional Corrections.
Yes. Yeah, we went through our usual numbers and set our budget committee and stuff. But Wally Kostic from probation gave us a presentation on this pre-release form, which the probation officer fills out, and they score the person, and they really don't have no say, the probation doesn't, on whether to release the person or not. This is just handed to the judge, and it's kind of a interesting thing because they're Commissioner Pavlik from Cooch, one of his biggest concerns on this is there was no mental health part of it, because Cooching in the last 5 years have had 2 people commit suicide in custody. So they're trying to work out some bugs on it, but it's a pretty interesting form, and you know, you get a score on it, and that was about.
So it's early release from.
No, it's a pre-release.
Pre-release.
Say if you get in trouble, you go to court, you got to fill this out in the morning, the probation officer does with you, and then they just hand it to the judge, and they really don't have no say in it anymore. So
pre-trial, it's pre-trial stuff. whether you're in.
Whether you're held.
Held at pretrial, oh.
Released or not, but like Commissioner Talbot says, you're missing a key part there without the mental health, so.
Is there going to be some consideration of changing it? Can
It was brought up to Wally, so.
Okay. Good.
Is that it?
That's it.
Thank you, sir. Arrowhead Regional Development, Ginny?
Yes, thank you. Well, last month I mentioned that ARDC has done a comprehensive study of the senior care needs in the county, or in the region, the 11-county region. And I'll be meeting with them this week, but they have come up with some legislative priorities, and I'll just read them off. They would be protecting vulnerable older adults, transportation initiatives, hearing aid and prescription drug reform, the EW waiver reform, that's in regards to the elderly waiver, caregivers, family leave, and addressing the opioid and elder abuse crisis. So these are the legislative priorities that they'll be going to discuss. So I think it's good. Talk about that in that area. That's it.
Community Health Board, Dave.
And Allison touched on that a little bit in the director's report, and it's probably worth re-mentioning the Healthy Families of America grant. Beyond that, I don't know what I mean, there's a lot more focus on the transition still, with Louise Anderson retiring, and kind of going through that process, going over it, reviewing it. I think that's probably enough.
It's a lot. That group that takes care of a lot of business. It's a lot to absorb. All right. Public Health and Human Service Advisory, Jerry and Carla.
We had a really important and good discussion in our roundtable. It's often the case that the roundtable is a important part of our meeting, and we got to talking about the services in general that strengthen the community, but it was also brought out because of the current public discussion around the Law Enforcement Center project. And the whole question of spending of resources, of tax dollars for things that benefit the public good and support the health of the community was really the core of that discussion. And it was a thoughtful discussion. We've got a lot of good people on that committee, and the sense of the committee was that of support for doing the things that that invest in the community, invest in the resources longer term in many cases that are good for people. The sense of the committee was of real appreciation for the work that and the risks that you're taking as commissioners, and appreciation for Jeff as county administrator, the work being done to wrestle with these issues responsibly, but nevertheless make investments in the welfare and the well-being of this community. And the importance of looking at not just what does it cost or how can we save money, but what are the values that we are expressing as we try to strengthen the resources that we have. And things like compassion and dignity of each person and inclusion of all people are important values that I think are the place where we really need to start when we talk about, you know, what should we be doing as a county. So I guess I would just want to express a thank you to all of you for the work and the difficult work that's being done in this area. you have the support of the advisory committee in wrestling with these tough issues.
Thank you.
If I could follow up on that, thank you for sharing that. I was reading a book this weekend on strategic decision-making, and you know, you look at various aspects of making decisions, and I think I really appreciate what you're saying, and that it's recognized in the community, because most of the discussion has been on that physical resource money side, and the social, you know, capital and social decision-making for long-term, and it really supports what you were talking about, that we just can't look at money issues. We have to look at the broad context of you know, what is our purpose and who are we serving?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Healthcare Planning Committee, Ginny.
Thank you. At our meeting, we found out that Carl Hansen is going to be retiring from the foundation, so they'll be looking for a new executive director. He said hopefully soon, so good luck to him. And then the rest of the discussion was on vaping. And we had discussed vaping the evening before at the Joint Powers meeting. And then it came up again because I was quite astounded at what is something that is attracting our young people. Well, then in the Tribune on Sunday, Jewel has a whole article about youth vaping and what they're doing about it. And so they have about 5 points as to what they're doing as a distributor, and especially because the young folks are attracted to some certain types of products. And so they're exiting Facebook and Instagram, and they're looking at impacting over 100 plus unauthorized stores that are selling. They hope to raise the age to 21, and so on and so forth. So it was just kind of a coincidence that we'd been discussing this, and then this came out. So I think that the company who's been providing all of this is now saying, this is a huge problem, especially with the young people. So they're going to, as they say, hit the problem head-on with action. So I commend them on that.
Thank you. North Shore Collaborative, Dave.
Nothing this month.
Emergency preparedness?
I think we're scheduled to meet next Tuesday. It's on the calendar anyway.
Yep.
Has anyone else heard?
If not, we'll have a big emergency meeting, preparedness in April, the end of April.
The annual conference.
Mm-hmm.
All right, for the good of the order, Allison, do you have anything? Okay. Carla?
No.
Gary?
Just to reiterate a bit about what Jenny brought up with the North Shore Healthcare Foundation, we've put out the ad for a full-time executive director, hoping to hire by mid-year. Carl is, I think, looking forward to retiring at the same time. But it represents a real step up for the foundation in terms of the energy and and the hoped for scale of monies that we can draw in and then redistribute to various community groups for healthcare and the health of the community.
Mm-hmm.
So a big thing.
Yeah. For
Jeff?
sure.
Dave?
I forgot with it's not AEOA, but it's the North is NEMOJET, the Northeast Minnesota.
It's a job training.
Yes, and I did go to that, and it was my confusion that I thought it was a subset of AEOA, but it's not. It's its own. It's federally funded and all that. So I learned a lot and was introduced to that group. The focus is often on displaced workers and also youth and students who are struggling to find work or placement in jobs, whether they be dropped out of school or just out graduated and not with direction. And so that was great to go to that. And that was in Virginia as well.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ginny?
Nothing.
Myron?
No. Well, I would just like to comment. I was talking with Carl Hansen the other night, and I think following up what Jerry said, and it's really, I think, good that they're looking, at development and doing more and more, and that's this whole social capital thing of nonprofits and so forth, that people are looking at the good of what we can do rather than what little we can do. And I appreciate that. And so they're really stepping up the type of person they're looking for, and the benefits and the pay for that as well, and hopefully get a type of person where, a growth-oriented kind of approach to the future. Yeah, it's very, very exciting.
Yeah.
It's good to see, yeah. Yes.
And my good of the order is the April Child Abuse Prevention Month. To please have your staff think about removing children from the home. My brother and sister had a better life being removed. And my abuse would have ended instantly if someone would have taken me out of my house. So please, for April, please consider that staying in the home is not the best solution. And that's it. And with that, I'll ask for adjournment.
So move.
Second.
Thank you.
So Jerry, the jail thing is just if people want to go.
End of that.
Yeah.